but most of my IT background is in Microsoft. And if you know anything about Microsoft, they are always under attack by nation states because that makes sense, right? Like Microsoft is used by most, if not all, government entities, no matter who they are. Like, I mean, of course, they use some, I'm sure they use some stacks like Linux as well, mixed in their stack, but you would be hard pressed to find any organizations or any government entity that's not currently using Microsoft Server or Windows Server in some capacity, right? So with that being said, Microsoft is always under attack. And recently, thankfully, my organization, the company I work for, doesn't currently run SharePoint on-prem. But recently, there is a CVE release for SharePoint on-prem, which could have had very grave impact, honestly, because um, it apparently interacted with the U.S. nuclear weapons agency. But you know, when it comes to nuclear, there's a lot of security that goes into that thing, and it's pretty airtight. It's the terminology is air gapped, meaning that it's not online. Although it is using technology, it's using very old technology, and also it's not reaching the internet. But you know, it's still like modern. But you know, you still need some kind of intranet, meaning that it's, you know, enter, like people within the network can interact with this network, but not outside. So I wanted to go through it a little bit and read into what was going on or what is going on with that. Also, the if you are using SharePoint online, this does not impact you. But if you are using SharePoint on-prem, which I'm not sure why somebody would be doing that, like honestly, like just pay Microsoft to host the thing. Like I don't even know what the price difference is, but I'm sure you probably saving a pretty penny or pretty buck by having them host it. And also you don't have to worry about patching and all the CVEs and all that stuff. So to me, in my opinion, it's worth it. Same thing with hosting email exchange on prem. There's no point anymore. Like of course, for security purposes, yes, some companies might need to do that. I don't know. I don't know what the purpose is, honestly, because you get patched quicker. You don't have to worry about patching it yourself. Of course, service availability becomes a thing where sometimes my exchange online is unavailable. But if that is impacted, your on-prem service will also be impacted. So that's a null point. Like there's no benefit there. Um, what else is a benefit? I'm trying to think of what the benefits are of hosting, of somebody choosing to host on-prem versus just going with the cloud. Of course, I still think infrastructure on-prem, like hosting some of your services or some of your servers on-prem, is beneficial, like running a hybrid cloud type of situation. But when it comes to some of those like other Microsoft services like Office products, I'm for hosting it online or just going to the cloud, like fully cloud with those services. But this is not the first time, anyway, this is not the first time that Microsoft has been under attack. I don't remember what it's called, but Microsoft suffered another cyber attack from the Typhoon. I think that's what it was called, right? I don't remember the first Vault Typhoon, I think is the name. Let's just share the screen. It says Chinese threat actors have hacked some Microsoft SharePoint servers and targeted the data of the business using them, the firm said. Chinese state-backed Typhoon and Violet Typhoon, as well as China-based Storm 2603, were said to have exploited vulnerabilities in on-premises SharePoint servers. That's not what I'm interested in, honestly. I'm interested in when is that? 2024? Not SharePoint. I think it was Exchange. There was a while there that Microsoft services were down because of okay, I didn't even remember exactly what it was, but I know it was some other stuff that happened. See, um, because Microsoft is such a big company and a lot of like government entities rely on it. I just released a video like portionally talking about how Microsoft was utilizing Chinese based engineers to support the US Army or US government cloud initiatives, which is which is pretty interesting because we all know about the I guess conflicts between the US and China. So that was very interesting that they thought this was okay or somehow cool to do. Anyways, apparently this is far. This have reached like 400 agencies, which is crazy. We expect it may continue to rise as investigation. I think this has also like the other thing is these attackers might be living off the land. I'm sure if those SharePoint servers are on prem, which they are, right? It's very likely that they already pivoted somewhere else. Or they're just living on the land and using some other method just to lay dormant, waiting to attack some other systems. I wouldn't be surprised if people think it's cool now, like it's okay, like oh we've patched the system and we're moving on, just to find out that they're still in there. Because that's the other part. Like getting hacked is so fudged up. It's so fucked up because like you might think that you fixed it, but you haven't fixed it for real because they're still in your system. Even or the system that you're cleaning, they're already pivoted to somewhere else. So this might cause some other issues. But my biggest interest was in the fact that they breach the nuclear weapon agency, and I wanted to investigate on or see what it take to actually set off a nuclear attack. Okay, yeah, because even though it's scary that it was breached, but it's not as scary as I guess the news might make it, because the process of setting off a nuclear attack is more than 2FA. That shit is like goddamn 6FA. Honestly, like, and to even set it up, you need multiple keys to override, like physical keys to override the action. You need codes. So even if the hackers got in, they wouldn't be able to set off nuclear by themselves. At least that's our understanding of how it works. I don't, based on what the government has told us, because nowadays you got to question everything, I guess. The U.S. agency responsible for maintaining and designing the nation's cache of nuclear weapon was among those breached by a hack of Microsoft's SharePoint document management software. Blah, 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 blah. No sensitive or classified information is known to have been compromised in the attack on the National Nuclear Security Administration, or NNSA, said the person who wasn't authorized to speak publicly and asked not to be identified. Blah blah blah. Also, this NNSA is also responsible for our nation's energy. It's the nuclear falls under the Department of Energy, National Nuclear Security Administration, which makes sense because we have a lot of power plants that are powered by that. One of NNSA's core mission is to ensure the United States maintains a safe, secure, and reliable nuclear stockpile through the application of unparalleled science, technology, engineering, and manufacturing. The Office of Defense Programs carries out NNSA's missions to maintain and modernize the nuclear stockpile through the Stockpile Stewardship and Management Program. Yeah, so this is some pretty serious stuff, honestly. That's them. Them boys are responsible for all the radioactive material, power plants, infrastructure, defense, nuclear security, all of that. So, pretty big target if you ask me. On Friday, July 18th, the exploitation of Microsoft SharePoint zero-day vulnerability began affecting the departments of energy. The department was minimally impacted due to its widespread use of Microsoft M365 Cloud and very capable cybersecurity systems. Doesn't matter, honestly. If if SharePoint if SharePoint is compromised, that's the thing with cybersecurity and cyber attacks in general. In my personal opinion, like you can have all these fancy firewalls in place and all these security systems in place, and it means jack if you click on a phishing email. like, like, firewalls are very expensive, and paying for CrowdStrike is very expensive, and paying for all these like third-party SOC system are very expensive. But somebody click on a phishing email, and all of a sudden you're duped. Like you got to start at zero. But it's easier to get back up running when you do have all these things in place or catch it quicker. But it's still, what I'm saying? It's like boxing, what I'm saying? That still doesn't stop you from getting hit on the nose. A very small number of systems were impacted. All impacted systems are being restored. The NSSA has a broad mission, which includes providing the Navy with nuclear reactors for submarines and responding to radiological emergencies among our duties. The agency also plays a key role in counterterrorism and transporting nuclear weapons around the country. Hackers were able to breach the agency as part of a 2020 attack on a widely used software program from SolarWind Corp. SolarWind. I don't know. This is about Microsoft and not SolarWind, but SolarWind is the LastPass. At least from the people I know or like in the industry, SolarWinds is viewed as the LastPass of like technology. Like a lot of people avoid it, but if that's what you have, and it takes a long time to roll off of a certain like vendor, so some people might still be using it, but I know the trust is very low with SolarWinds. So is LastPass. I don't know a single company who uses LastPass as their password generator or as their password storage. You know what I'm saying? Because it's just not good. A department spokesperson said then that malware had been isolated to business networks only. Microsoft has blamed Chinese state-sponsored hackers for the attacks, which exploited flaws in its commonly used SharePoint document management software in a campaign that has breached governments, business, and other organizations around the world. In some instances, the hackers have stolen signed-in credentials, including username, password, hash codes, and tokens. Bloomberg reported earlier. That's the other thing with MFA. Like, MFA is great, but like more and more people are finding ways on breaching MFA because all you have to do is just steal the hash or the token. If you steal the token, you can bypass it, which is why people are now more and more moving to like physical keys. Like you need a physical key to plug into your device in order to move on. Especially if you're dealing with like very secure systems, which I'm sure the government implements a lot of that too. Anyways, the full extent of the damage isn't yet clear. The flaws apply to SharePoint customers who manage the software on their networks as opposed to on the cloud. Yes. So even if those networks were compromised, I'm not sure how much information could have been transmitted to the adversaries. But there are other categories of information that are sensitive but unclassified that may be treated with less care and might have been exposed. This includes some information related to nuclear materials and even nuclear weapons. Even access to business systems, such as the network accessed in 2020 SolarWinds hack, could yield useful information about personnel that could be exploited for social engineering purposes. That's the other thing too. Like, although these these systems are very secure, they're only as secure as the person who are managing these systems. Because like, it's very like cybersecurity is very finicky. Like, you could have all the big fancy firewalls in place. You could have all these fancy, vendors. You can have a CISO. You can have a 6,000 crew of security expert, and one of your end users click on an email, and it always means nothing, and it always means zero, which is very interesting. But having a big staff like that, like I'm sure the government has a lot of backups. They have a lot of security protocols if somebody does click on a phishing email to stop a threat like that. But in general, I just think it's interesting. I also wanted to look into, I don't know if I can find a video on what it actually takes to set off a nuke. Like, how close did we come to to actual catastrophe? Because I think it's overblown. I think the process of actually setting off a nuke has to be very, very difficult.
What if the president of
Otherwise, you know what I'm saying, we're pretty much all doomed if it's all it takes is a cyber attack away and for somebody to blow off the whole planet. You know what I'm saying? Like, all you gotta do is hack somebody and then we're all dead. Like, anyways.
What if the President of the United States decides to launch a nuclear strike? President Trump started 2018 with a tweet chiding North Korea's leader Kim Jong-un that he too has a nuclear button, and it's bigger and more powerful than Kim's. But launching a missile involves much more than pushing a button, and really there is no button. Here's what would actually happen. The president must first discuss the plan with a group of military and civilian advisors. That group includes the Pentagon's Deputy Director of Operations and the head of U.S. Strategic Command. Anyone else in the group is at the president's discretion. The call either takes place in the White House Situation Room, or the president can be patched in on a secure line. Some of the advisors may try to change the president's mind or even resign in protest, but ultimately, the Pentagon must do whatever the commander-in-chief orders. That meeting with advisors can be as short as 30 seconds. Next, the president gives the order to launch. But before the Pentagon can prepare the launch order, it must first verify that the person ordering the strike is indeed the president. An officer in the Pentagon's war room reads what's known as a challenge code, for example, Delta Echo. The president retrieves the biscuit, a laminated card the president or a military aide carries at all times, and finds the matching response to the challenge code, for example, Charlie Zulu. Once the codes match, the launch order goes out. The war room prepares a message containing the war plan, time of launch, authentication codes, and the codes needed to unlock the missiles before firing them. That message is only about 150 characters long. It's encoded, encrypted, and broadcast to launch crews. At this point, only about 2 to 3 minutes may have passed since the initial conference call. Within seconds, a submarine and 5 ICBM crews in various underground bunkers receive the launch orders. They open safes and compare their sealed authentication system codes to those sent by the war room. This will confirm that the order is authentic. If the codes match, the crews enter the war plan number into their launch computers. They type additional code to unlock the missiles, and at the designated time of launch, the 5 crews simultaneously turn a launch key retrieved from their safe. It only takes 2 crews to launch, so 3 can refuse to do any of the prior steps, and the missile or missiles will still fire. For missiles launched from a submarine, there is no second key. The crew has full power to launch. From here, there is no turning back. It's been as little as 5 minutes from the time the president decided to launch a nuclear missile to the time the missile or missiles blast out of their silos. It will take submarine missiles an additional 15 minutes until they shoot out of their tubes. Once it fires, a missile and its warhead cannot be called back.
Shit. That's all it takes. That's all it takes to blast the entire planet off the face of the planet. Just a couple minutes, everybody gone. But anyways, I think the threat of I guess SharePoint exploitation or even Microsoft exploitation or any sort of like cyber attack causing a nuclear fallout is low because of, like, as we just saw, like how much is actually involved, like physical things that are involved, physical keys, physical codes, physical MFA authentications to actually launch a nuclear, attack. So I don't think that's a worry. But anyways, as long as Microsoft exists, people will attack it. Even if Linux, as you know, a lot of people use Linux, as I do, which we'll hop on Linux in a few seconds when we're looking into the coffee app, or the tea app, I should say. Even if it's Linux has exploits like Mac OS. A lot of, I guess, non-tech people, I've heard a lot of them say this: "Oh, Mac don't get viruses, bro." Like, shut up. You don't know what you're talking about. Windows it gets attacked more often because more people use it, more businesses use it. And also Mac OS is a very closed source system. Like, the apps that you're installing, they are sometimes verified by Apple, but macOS can still get viruses and can still be attacked. It's not foolproof. It's not like you know they're foolproofed. So even if the government agencies switch to, let's say, start using Linux full time, hackers will just switch to attacking Linux. Like, and it's gonna be a loop all around. Like Linux is not foolproof. It's safer because it's open source, but it's not foolproof. It still can be hacked.